What's going on, guys? Welcome back to PT Coffee Cast, brought to you by The Movement. My name is Dalton, and alongside me today is my beautifully bearded friend, William. William, how are we doing today?
I'm feeling like brand new.
Yeah,
You know why?
why?
Got these beautiful new running hats.
Dude, it's been like Christmas around here this week.
I know.
We got new bench that's inclined and declined and sturdy. Like, you're benching
yeah.
500 pounds on that thing and feeling safe.
That's right.
New barbell, 35-pound barbell, thinner grip. I feel like Jess, Lauren, and our previous client experience manager, Jenna, have been harping on us to get that thing in here for so long. So we got a new barbell. I walked in today, these brand new hats. Like, it's a good day.
It's like Christmas in January.
Yeah.
Super excited.
Yeah, and I'm excited to be back with another episode. Guys, if you're joining us, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your podcast platforms. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're putting out all the video episodes. We're also dropping some other YouTube content there now. We're trying to get that up to 500 subscribers. So if you guys are interested in YouTube content, head over there, subscribe to the Movement's the Movement's YouTube page. And then lastly, if you guys want to learn a little bit more about the mentorship and what we have to offer from that standpoint, head over to themovementmentorship.com. You can learn more about that there. But we're going to dive into our episode today, which is going to be a scenario that you had with one of your clients around how they may have mistaken their pain, I guess, for laziness. And I think that conversation that you had is a really good topic to talk about. So I will have you lay that out, and then we'll get into it.
All right, let's lay it out.
Lay it out.
Yeah, so I was having a assessment with a client, and we were just talking, about things. And the client had kind of said that they felt like, I'm just lazy. And I was like, okay, interesting. Like, why do you think you're lazy? And then that led to us talking about that more. And I can talk about the result of that and what ended up happening. But I think the underlying kind of purpose of that, or I guess what we're sort of trying to highlight and encourage people to do, is when you hear people say a phrase like that, identifying themselves as lazy or, whatever. I'm struggling for other examples.
Yeah.
But
lazy, not disciplined,
Right.
Can't hold themselves accountable. I'm not this person because I've never been consistent, like that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And in this circumstance, when we started talking about it more, we realized that this particular person was not lazy at all. In fact, was pretty disciplined with most of her life for where she's at. Like, very busy, very, works really hard, is ready to start and has been trying to start doing more activities and working out more, but just simply kept getting pain after she did anything, and so she'd go for a 2-kilometer walk and not be able to just be in discomfort for the rest of the day. Mm-hmm. And so when we talked about it more, it was like, hey, you're not limited by your laziness. You have to be lazy because you're in pain.
Right.
And you can't tolerate doing the things that you want to be doing. So there's motivation there to do it. You want to do it. You're at that point where you're already trying to do it. So it actually wasn't laziness. And so I think that's really important for us to explore that kind of thought and belief, right? Because it could be true. And I think in some circumstances, maybe that is true, and it's an important thing for the person to realize so that they can try to actively be more conscious of that and change that behavior, right? Or thought or belief or whatever. But in many other circumstances, it's actually not true. And there's a different thing that is impacting whatever they're trying to do. And that belief then may be a negative thing for no reason. You're having this negative belief of yourself that you're lazy, you're not disciplined, when maybe that's not actually the case. and you don't need that dark cloud looming over you. You need to redirect yourself to a different solution or pathway.
Yeah, and I'm curious to hear you dive into like her response and like that how that came, whatever came of that conversation. But I think like the key thing is exploring people's beliefs is really important, and like I always really want to try hard to understand what people are thinking, because a lot of times, and I do this, and I think this is a common defense mechanism for most of us, is like we'll start saying these things that are not necessarily true, like, oh, I'm lazy, when there's a lot of indications that that individual is not lazy, but it's an easy way to like label it, right? And so I think it's important as clinicians to recognize that if someone is expressing a thought like I'm lazy, but then you've gotten to know them and connected with them and you watch what they do and they're not really demonstrating that quality in most aspects of their life, then they're probably not actually lazy, and it's worth like exploring like, well, why do you say that? Like, what do you think makes you lazy? Because a lot of times you'll get to the bottom of like, oh, there's something else that's driving this, right? The other side of it is, if someone is actually calling themselves lazy and they're demonstrating all of those lazy qualities through conversations and have it's showed up objectively that it's impacted them getting to other goals in their life, or even impacting them in the rehab setting in the past, it's actually a good thing to highlight that they're identifying that they're calling themselves lazy. And then you could dive into why they're lazy, and there's probably more deeper roots to all those things, but at least they're aware that that is something that's holding them back, and then you can have that conversation. So I think on like both fronts, it's always good to explore people's beliefs and why they say things like that and how they see the world from their perspective, because it's really going to help you guide them to their goals, or at least help them do their best to get to those goals with some of those barriers that they're demonstrating.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that that you don't need to necessarily address every negative belief or every belief in general, but
Totally.
I think if there's something that just comes up that seems very much directly related to the problem at hand, then that's something you should address. And then I think in this example, like, it was also an opportunity to really help the client get some self-confidence, because it's like, hey, and for me to actually help instill that, because it's like, hey, look, based on what you're telling me about your life, like, you're a pretty dedicated person, and it sounds like you really want to make this change, and you've been trying to make it, and that's awesome, so like, I actually don't think you're lazy at all.
Yeah.
And like, I think someone can leave that kind of conversation feeling really good about themselves, and like, yeah, they're in pain and we gotta solve that problem, but like, guess what? You're in the place that's gonna be able to help you do that. And then you're probably, knowing you and where you're at, you're gonna start doing things, So
Yeah.
I think like it's an opportunity.
Yeah, it's funny you bring this up, because we were talking about this topic before we started. I actually just had a recent conversation with someone that, with one of my clients, that was very similar aspect, but it actually changed my mindset a little bit, because we were talking, and she was having a hard time getting back on track with like staying consistent and running, and it was something that's like really important to her, and you could tell that she's someone who's a very driven person, and she's got her job and her family, and she's very much like not lazy, right? And she was talking to me, and she kind of got a little bit emotional because she's had a hard time getting back on track. And one of the things that was really, and I'm glad we had this conversation, because one of the things that really impacted her is the fact that when she struggles to get on track, people that she believes that people think she's uninterested or lazy or not capable of doing those things, when it's actually, that's not the case. Like, she wants to do these things, she's not lazy, she's just had some struggles with, we didn't get into the deepness of whatever that was, because I just don't think it was appropriate time to do that. But like, she just had mentioned that there's other things that impact her, that she actually gets very concerned that other people are forming this opinion about her. And it really was good for me to know that, like thinking about how we work with people and we have True Coach and, there is reminders that keep people accountable. But, when I'm thinking about, okay, how do we get this person back on track and get them like moving through their injury? It's like, I don't want to bombard this person and like have them be missing workouts or overwhelm them, because then they're not going to get them done. And then she's going to think that I think that she's lazy and not interested. And then she's going to feel bad about that. So she's probably not going to want to show up to her session. And then, so it was really interesting that we got into that conversation. I'm really glad we did, because I think it's going to allow for us to be successful. But what it really shifted my mind around is, and this is just me checking like my own ego, is like being mindful that you're not making quick judgments on people because they're not doing things does not mean all the time that it's because they're uninterested or they're lazy. And, someone who, for myself personally, who is like, I very much push myself, challenge myself, try to be someone who like hold myself accountable to the things that I say. And I'm not perfect. Like I mess up just like everyone else, but I form this view of the world in my head, and you're always going to have that view put onto other people. But it kind of checked my like ego, I guess maybe is the right thing. I don't know, but it really made me rethink the way that I'm going to view those situations and explore them more before just being like, oh, it's just this person's uninterested. They're not disciplined. They're not holding themselves accountable, which I don't always go to that, but like sometimes I can go down that rabbit hole, and there's more to it, right? Sometimes that is the case, but maybe there's more to it that's worth exploring. And I think that kind of relates to like a little bit of what you're saying with your client. So I just thought it would be like good to bring up.
Yeah, you're all like, there's so many different directions that can go. And I think like part of our job is to like help people figure out how to be disciplined, and like how to get there, and figure out what are the things limiting them from being disciplined, And I think about the example that you just shared, and I think there's other things like, to throw a couple different potential directions that kind of conversation could go, is like sometimes it's like you think you're lazy, but really you are a really busy person and you don't have a plan. And not having a plan is the thing that is affecting your ability to be disciplined, because you go, oh, I have this half-hour time slot to do a workout. If you spend 15 minutes trying to come up with a plan, or you don't know what to do, you're so likely to be like, just
Whatever.
Push this to tomorrow.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have a plan, then you just go in there, you don't need to think about it, you just execute, you just do what is on your plan. I think in other circumstances, it's more environmental. So like, for example, you're really busy, you want to do this workout, but the gym is 30 minutes away. Not going to work because it's too far. It's too much time. You're unlikely to like get there and go do it on a consistent basis. So like there's so many different directions where maybe it's not the thing that they're bringing up initially. There's something there that can actually be solved.
Yeah.
It can actually, you can help them come to a solution, and then you're implementing the things you're actually working on in the session, for their particular issue. But the bottom line is, if you don't go and address that stuff, you're giving them the greatest program ever, but then they're not going to be able to get it done.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, and I think that's why those things are so important. It's a skill set that you can build like as a clinician, and it's something that like we really push a lot, because like when it comes down to it, that's the most important thing. And like if you look at rehab, a high percentage of reason why people don't like get better or accomplish their goals, a lot of times like is that aspect. It's like, one, you got to find the right help that's going to guide you and understands your goals and is going to be able to take you there, right? But outside of that, like a lot of times people are just not set up for success based off of like where they are, what they're doing in their life, and how to get there. And our job, I think, as clinicians is to help people create a system, a framework, a path for them to like do that, and then use our skill sets as clinicians based off assessing, understanding tissues, understanding exercise progressions, regressions, understanding, behavior change and communication. Like all of those things are then used to help that. But without getting to the root of a lot of those things, like you're not really going to be able to get that person to where they want to go in a sense. And a lot of times, even if you take their pain away, they're not going to get there because like, sure, let's just say they come in and then their pain is better, but they don't understand why. They don't understand what caused it. They don't understand the idea of like overloading tissues and how they respond. They don't implement like good behaviors into like their weekly routines. It's like they're just going to end up flaring themselves up or re-irritating themselves, and then they're going to be back, right? Whereas like if you focus on building up those principles and guiding them in the way that like we talk about all the time, then they're building their own skills to then go and implement this in their life later on. And even if they're still a little painful when they leave here or when they go out and do their thing, it's like they now have the skills to navigate that, and that's the important thing that we need to get out to other people.
I think that's the sort of approach we want to promote is like, if you just help people get out of pain, you are doing a good thing. But think about it as like get people out of pain and have them leave here thinking deadlifting isn't bad for their back.
Yeah, and we all know that like the majority of big health issues in our society is the fact that people are unhealthy, they're not strong, they're not exercising. So it's like, why would we not use an injury or rehab? We're going off topic here a little bit, but like, why would we not use injury or rehab like as a way to like elevate people back into that? And this is where I get a little bit of gripe sometimes when I see like comments about like, and I'm here for the research, and it's interesting to see these things like pop up where like, sometimes exercise is no better than like some other treatment, which is like checks my bias, right? But even when that comes up, I'm like, yeah, but we got to think bigger than that. Mm-hmm. We have to look outside of that, because what does exercise do for people's lives, their health? What does exercise do for their mindset, their mental state? Like, that is what we need to think about. And if we can use an injury or a sensitization of a knee or a tendinopathy or something like that to reinvigorate and re-get someone back on track for taking control of their health, like, that is value in my opinion, and we should be utilizing that. And that's what exercise and movement and mobility and education around those things does. That's not what like other forms of treatment that are more like passive, they don't necessarily do that. I'm not saying you can't utilize those to help people, but if you're not at the core implementing those things, how are you impacting people's health? Like, I think we're missing the boat by not doubling down on the impact we can have on people's health beyond like their pain.
100%. There's so many different directions that you can go with that. And I think the point we're trying to put forward is have those conversations around an individual's mindset. Couple that with your solution, and your programming with them, because that's going to lead to actual meaningful change beyond simply getting out of pain.
Right, and then I would like to circle it back and then wrap up. It's like you have that conversation with your client. You talk about how, hey, you're not really being lazy. You identify maybe what was really going on, which was the fact that the pain was impacting them from participating in their activity. And then I would imagine you go into a conversation around that and you start to address that problem. And then what happens from there?
Exactly. Then we start working on actually getting her to be able to do things with less pain.
Right.
And then with encouragement and boom, doing stuff, being consistent, walking, exercising, right? So that ends up being the solution. And I think just a healthier mindset was the big thing there.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And now the next time, because she's probably going to have some sensitivity at some point in her life again, the next time she's going to then reevaluate her situation and not get in that negative mindset of like, oh, I'm just lazy, I'm not accomplishing things. And that mindset and that like almost a mind virus that you tell yourself will cycle you in a path that could lead you to a place where it's like now you're like, well, I'm lazy, so I'm not going to do this, and I'm lazy, so I'm not going to do that, and that can really carry over into a lot of other aspects like of your life. So I think that conversation goes like a long way. It won't maybe show up right away, but like over time, like that's going to have an impact, in my opinion.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I think that's the goal, right? You know, and like I was kind of alluding to before, it's like it could be a different scenario, like deadlifting's bad for your back is the belief, or someone just doesn't, know where to go to the gym or how to have a plan. Like there's different realms that this can go in, but I think those are the things that you want to like. Those are opportunities to like really change someone's health and use the injury as like a launching pad for that.
Yeah, totally. Sweet. Anything else?
That's good.
Cool. All right. Well, let's wrap up. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. If you aren't subscribed to the podcast, make sure you subscribe on your podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, so you don't miss out on any episodes. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can see these fresh new hats that we got at the movement, and so you can see our beautiful faces. We're trying to get that YouTube channel to 500 subscribers, so check that out, subscribe, leave us a comment, like, all that fun stuff. And then if you want to learn more about the mentorship, head over to themovementmentorship.com. You can learn more about what we got going on with that there. But that's all we got for today, guys. As always, stay caffeinated. Peace.